Hey, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Willardy, and welcome back to a new video. It's been a while since I've uploaded anything, but I have been super busy with work, and I just couldn't find the time to upload anything, especially with Pokemon Legends Arceus coming out, which is what we're talking about today. Today, I figured it was about time. I officially have beaten the main story of Pokemon Legends Arceus. The credits rolled. I did a little bit of post-game after that. I believe that's post-game. I don't actually know. I would think so, but I've completed the game. I've played 21 hours roughly of this game, and I'd like to give a spoiler-free review of this game. I figured people still probably haven't bought the game yet. They're waiting to hear what people's thoughts on this game are, and today we're gonna give our thoughts on the game in a very short, I guess, short for a spoiler review, spoiler-free review of this game, and hopefully this either sways you to buy it or sways you not to buy it. It really depends on what you want out of a Pokemon game. I do have a lot of things in this video that I enjoy about the game. I do want to start off the bat by saying this. I have been very critical of Legends Arceus leading up to release, and I understand that. I have been very, very critical of this game, very kind of skeptical, and I'm going to say it now, it blew me out of the water. It blew my expectations away. There are some concerns still, however, but it is a good first entry. I do want to say that right off the bat. So let's hop into more specifics and talk about Pokemon's Legend Arceus, and the different things that either I liked or I was concerned about. So when we first found out that Legends Arceus was an open world type of game, one of the main things that I was concerned about was how vast and how filled of life is this game going to be for an open world Pokemon game. I mean, we saw the wild area in Sword and Shield, and it was fairly well lived in, I think. I mean, with a smaller scale, it was pretty easy to kind of pack that with Pokemon. And the variety there in Sword and Shield was okay for the most part. It wasn't the best, but it was okay. And I think Legend Arceus had a very unique challenge because you have these bigger open world sections that you can go to, such as the Obsidian Fieldlands, and it definitely was something that I was concerned about going into. Are these open world sections going to feel like they're full of life? Because in those initial trailers and even the most recent trailers leading up to release, there was a little bit of lack of life in regards to Pokemon in the areas that we saw. I mean, you'd see a couple Weasel there, but you really wouldn't see a whole lot in the backgrounds or really much around that, and it was concerning. However, now that the game is out, I understand why, and it actually surprised me a lot when I got to visit this open world, really how many Pokemon are actually in the open world in these different sections. So to kind of start off, the reason we're not seeing a bunch of Pokemon in those trailers is because of pop-in. They're not going to show every Pokemon all at once. They're going to fade in when you're walking around through the open world, and that's completely understandable. It helps save resources. Pokemon will fade out, Pokemon will fade in, landscape will fade in and fade out. Sometimes fades in and fades out a little bit harsher than it needs to, but still very cool. There is a lot of different Pokemon in this open world, and it's great to see. They did a pretty good job of filling it with Pokemon, and I enjoyed that. There are still some areas I would say that could use improvement. Pretty much the water areas, I think, are the ones that need the most improvement. There weren't a whole lot of Pokemon swimming around there in the water, at least that I would have liked. I would have liked to see a lot more, or at least condense them a little bit more, because I feel like they may have been spread out purposefully or not purposefully, but I feel like it would have benefited to add a little bit more Pokemon in the water areas. Also, the caves. The caves felt very barren in regards to Pokemon life. It just wasn't ideal for me, and I would have liked to see a little bit more Pokemon added to those areas, but those two are the main concerns for, I guess, the open world, even though the caves are kind of on their own. They're a little off from the open world, but for the most part, I think that the game did pretty well of filling these areas with Pokemon. There are some open areas out in the world that could have used a little more Pokemon, but overall, I think when you buy the game and you play through the game, you are going to be impressed by how many Pokemon are actually out there in these different areas. And of course, yeah, you're not going to see all of them at once because of that pop-in, but I still think it did a good job. One thing I would like to touch on, which was really impressive, and I think Game Freak took into mind when they were crafting the different sections of the open world and the open world as a whole, is the different variety of biomes that you get to see within these different areas. For example, the Obsidian Fieldlands is one of the areas that you visit. And while it is separate from the others, you have to go back to the village just to get to another place. There are a lot of different biomes just within the Obsidian Fieldlands. There's a forest, there is a beach, there's a plains, there's a mountain, and there's multiple of these in some cases of these different areas. And it's really cool to see. There's a riverway that stretches throughout the Obsidian Fieldlands, which is really cool to see. You see places like beaches, you see the snowy tundra area, you see caves, you see forests, etc., in all the different areas, which I think Game Freak did a really good job at doing. It's not just flat areas like you have in the wild area in Sword and Shield for the most part, with some hills here and there, a little pond. It's definitely taking that idea from the wild area of Sword and Shield and blowing it up even more, which was very nice to see the diverse biomes and everything in Pokemon Legends Arceus. Something that, if you guys knew, I did the Halo playthrough, which didn't have that variety of biomes compared to Pokemon Legends Arceus. And I think that the variety of Pokemon within those biomes works really well. So Game Freak definitely hit that on the mark pretty well there. Another thing that I wish the open world, I think, did better on, especially as you kind of progressed through the main story of the game. I guess this is a little spoiler, but obviously the main story has to involve with you going and quelling these noble Pokemon, and kind of advancing throughout Hisui and expanding. And I really wish that the further that you got in the game, I wish that you saw more of that expansion in regards to the people who are present in the Hisui region. Stuff like excavation teams, more Survey Corps people out in the open world, and just more life, I guess, in regards to the people. The Pokemon does really well. I think they do really well in showing that there are a lot of Pokemon in this world. But I wish that as you progress through the story and you expanded further, I wish that you'd be able to see that just a little bit more. It doesn't have to be too much, but just a little bit more that's in there currently. It could have added a little bit more interesting life to the open world, but I know in my concerns video, I felt that if there wasn't a whole lot of life in this open world, I wasn't going to care about it. And I mainly was going to go and just do the main story. And I did care about this open world. I had a lot of fun exploring, finding out what Pokemon are in certain areas, and looking for items, stuff like that. And it was just really fun to find these Pokemon in the open world and to see all the different biomes and everything like that. The open world definitely surprised me because that was probably my biggest concern, is those open world sections. Because, I mean, this is their first real open world game, if you don't want to count Sword and Shield's wild areas. But I think they did a really good job on that, and it surprised me a lot. Moving on from open world, I'd kind of like to shift towards the story, which I know is what a lot of people are concerned about when it comes to Pokemon games. It's very niche, I feel like, these days, because a lot of people just want to battle, they just want to shiny hunt, and they just want to get over with the story. I know a lot of people don't care about story, but I feel like the story, for the most part, is pretty on par with what you would expect from a Pokemon game. Very similar. It's small and contained, and it really isn't much of a hindrance in regards to stories of previous titles, such as like Sword and Shield or Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Sun and Moon. It's not really a hindrance as much. It's there, and when you do go on these main story missions, it's not like super long. It's not super boring dialogue. Some of the dialogue I was very interested in, which is weird for me. Maybe it's because I enjoy lore and being able to go into an old version of Sinnoh was really cool to me. But it was a very interesting story. You see the same similar story beats, of course, that you normally see in the Pokemon game. Obviously, your main task in this game is to go and quell these noble Pokemon and stop the big butthole in the sky, that little thing that's spinning around that you guys have seen in trailers and everything, is to stop that and close it. So that is your main story. And it's you see those similar story beats. Like I said, in the old games, you had the gyms, for example, and now you have these noble Pokemon that you have to quell, and those are your main story portions. Everything else leading up to those noble Pokemon is that in between section that you got with like facing Team Rocket in Pokemon Red and Blue, or dealing with Team Plasma in Pokemon Black and White. All that middle ground stuff, it's in there, and it's the same kind of stuff that you see in a Pokemon story, which is expected. And there are the different, I guess, sections of the game, and it's interesting that your dex completion also coincides with that. Even though the dex completion is not like a main, I guess, story focus, you could probably go through the game without focusing too much on that, although you would probably be severely over-leveled, or under-leveled, sorry. Talking about over-leveled, however, it is super easy, I feel like, to get over-leveled in this game, especially if you're using one main team. It is super easy to get over-leveled in this game, mainly if you focus on dex completion, which we'll talk about why it's so addicting in the gameplay portion of this review. But you can get super over-leveled very easy in the story. When I faced Cleavor, I think I was a little bit over-leveled, and I realized after Cleavor and after the next noble that comes after that, okay, maybe I should take it a little bit slow on completing the dex, a little bit slower on completing the dex, and then we'll see how this works, because I didn't want it to be too easy. And it definitely was up until that point. And I found myself after I stopped catching so many Pokemon and stopped battling so many Pokemon, because it was just so fun to do it, that I was more on par with the level of the games, and it was nice to see. And so I guess I would like to see that kind of looked at a little bit if Game Freak does decide to do a game like this in the future. Maybe, I think they did a good job of the leveling and the XP output of battles and catching Pokemon. I think that's fine. But even if they have that again, I think it might be even better, specifically for those people who want to go through and catch all the Pokemon and do all of the different research tasks for specific Pokemon, because you can get super over-leveled super quick even before fighting Cleavor. So I think that might need to be looked at just a little bit, but I think also you as a player have to decide how you want to play. Do you want to play over-leveled, catching all of these Pokemon? Doesn't matter that much to you. It mattered a little bit to me. That's why I stopped. In the end, I don't think Game Freak needs to 100% scrap that idea. I think maybe tinker it just a little bit, and then go with that. But yeah, overall, I was super over-leveled at first, but once I stopped, I think the final battle that I was facing off against in the main story, I was maybe 8 levels under-leveled compared to their ace. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. The ending twist in this game, obviously Pokemon is pretty linear. You face the gyms and you have some underlying story in there. And the underlying story in this was interesting, and the twist at the end was okay. Although I feel like once you get to that ending portion, after you quell the final noble, I feel like that portion between the final noble and the end credits are a little rushed. There's some things in there that probably could have been expanded upon a little bit more and given more thought to, because when you look at the main story of this game, obviously it's a little drawn out and things are explained and you have all these different tasks, but once you get towards that last noble Pokemon that you have to quell. It feels like things are very rushed, and maybe that was due to their timeline for releasing the game set by Nintendo or whatever, but it just felt very rushed and kind of like an incomplete thought. Because when the credits rolled, I was like, wait, really? That's the end? And it was concerning. Obviously, there is the post game, which might expand on that more. I'm only a little bit into the post game right now, so once we give the spoiler review of this game, then maybe it'll be a little bit more complete of a thought in regards to the main story. But the ending twist, it was interesting, like I said, but it just didn't feel satisfying. It felt like it was rushed, and it took away from the experience a little bit, but I still had fun throughout the main story, and I think they did a pretty good job. And finally, I would like to touch on probably the biggest thing when it comes to Pokemon Legends Arceus, and that is the gameplay mechanics. The combat, oh my god, feels so damn smooth. Whew, I didn't think going into Pokemon Legends Arceus with this open world that the combat was going to feel as good as it did. Getting into Pokemon battles, like Pokemon Wild battles, is pretty smooth and solid. You can run away from any Pokemon battle that you want, as long as it's not a trainer battle, of course. And it feels nice to be able to pick and choose your battles. It's not like you have to fight every single Pokemon you run into like you did in the traditional games, with like Red and Blue or Gold and Silver, where you run into a Pokemon and you're like, okay, now I have to run, and sometimes I might not be able to run based on my speed stat. So it's nice that you can be able to run from every Pokemon, and you can pick and choose what Pokemon you're encountering or you're catching, which is very similar to, obviously, the wild areas in Sword and Shield, where you kind of have that player choice. So I like that. Being able to jump in and out of combat is pretty nice. The combat is super smooth in regards to the agile and strong style. I didn't think that they were going to work very well starting off the bat, and I didn't think I was going to use them much. And I found myself using them a lot more towards the end of the game. Once I started to kind of somewhat understand how well they could benefit my battling, it was pretty nice. Agile style and strong style, I think, are good together for sure. Especially if you're really paying attention to, first on what type of Pokemon you're fighting, and what type of Pokemon you have, and what move you're going to use. Because all of those different factors kind of take into it. For example, a Rapidash using Flame Wheel, for example, is going to be able to then follow up with another attack, in some cases, even if it's not using Agile style. And then you can use Agile style, get another turn on top of that, and then use a strong style attack, which is very, very cool. I thought that having that choice between either using strong style, using Agile style, or not using either, and then going based off of your Pokemon moves and what they're using as well, definitely works well. And it's funny too, because it always probably seems nice to use strong style because, hey, I get to do more damage. That's really cool. But if you don't think it through, you can really put yourself at a disadvantage if you're not paying attention to those things that I mentioned, like the type of Pokemon you're facing, what your Pokemon is, and your speed, and the move list in the top right corner. Things like that, if you're not paying attention, you can put yourself at a disadvantage pretty quick, and there's a lot of depth to battling, especially when you add the Agile style and the strong style. It feels great. Also, they added a lot of nice quality of life things to battles, I think. For example, status abilities. They don't stick outside of a battle. I mean, once you are out of that battle, that status ability is gone. You're not poisoned. Your Pokemon's not poisoned. And I think that's pretty cool. Sleep is changed. Sleep, you become drowsy now, which gives you a chance to not attack, similar to paralysis, which is very cool. I don't even know if confusion is in the game, to be honest, because I never encountered it during my game. But those nice, like, little quality of life things to the different moves, like Stealth Rock, being able to do damage and damage over time is really cool. Pokemon getting enraged and getting buffed is really cool. There's a bunch of different small things we could touch on in regards to the battle mechanics that I think they did pretty well on. And it's probably my favorite Pokemon game to battle in. Now, when it comes to catching Pokemon, you're going to be doing a lot of this, obviously, especially during the beginning of the game. It is so easy to catch and get caught in that cycle of catching Pokemon that you kind of forget what you're supposed to be doing. And catching Pokemon is so freaking smooth and satisfying that I can't go back to normal games now, to completing a dex at least, because it's so fast to catch Pokemon and complete your dex in this game. For example, in the Obsidian Wildlands, one of the first Pokemon you encounter is Starly. And what you can do is if you have like 2 or 3 Starly in one little clump, you can hide in small grass near them, throw Pokeballs at one Starly, quickly switch and throw a Pokeball at the next Starly, and then the next Starly before the first Starly is even caught. You can go and do that. You don't have to be forced to wait through that catching animation. And if you want to just run through the open world, throw a Pokeball at a Pokemon and run away and hope it catches, you're good. You don't have to wait. And obviously you might want to, but you don't have to. And it's really cool that you can just smoothly walk up to a Pokemon, throw a Pokeball at it, and then run away. I think it's pretty cool. That catching is super simple, and it's just not a annoying and tedious process, I guess, because you don't have to walk in grass, find a Pokemon, and then go through the menus and catch the Pokemon. You can switch all with your X button from your Pokemon to your Pokeballs. You can switch with your LR buttons to your different Pokeballs and then throw them. And it's super simple. And wow, it was super fun to catch a lot of Pokemon in this game. I think that the alpha Pokemon really adds some depth to this game's open world to a little bit, and the gameplay mechanics to a bit, because I believe they're the only Pokemon in the open world that can utilize that agile and strong style. And I did want to touch on that a little bit because I think it adds a little bit more variety, especially if you're going around and battling these Pokemon. It gives them a little bit more of an edge in regards to just a regular Pokemon. Like a regular Starly isn't going to use a strong style tackle, as opposed to a Alpha Starly is going to use a strong style tackle, and it could put you at a severe disadvantage if you decide to want to battle one of these things, especially with the Alpha Pokemon being a little bit higher level than the regular Pokemon in the area. Now, in regards to gameplay, the boss battles in this game, the noble Pokemon that you were fighting, I actually was concerned about this because boss battles, especially if you're bringing them into light of an open world where you have, I guess, your own choice to kind of move freely around the arena that you're fighting in and make choices about dodging their attacks and everything, that can be super, super complicated, especially if you don't have a set formula like something like Dark Souls has. And it was a concern, but I was blown away with how fun some of these bosses were, and it was great. I think there was one boss that's probably my favorite because it's almost like a dance. And I think that's when you get boss battles right, is when it feels like it's a dance. And the boss battle I'm going to talk about is a spoiler, so I'm not going to talk about it. But it just felt super fun and not overly complicated because it is a Pokemon game after all. But it just felt satisfying to be able to take those opportunities to throw the bombs as much as I could and make it a fast-paced battle where you're involved. I really only had trouble with the final 3 bosses of the game, 2 of which are noble Pokemon, and then 1 is a big final boss. Those are the ones that I really only had trouble with, and that was mainly because they go hard with those final bosses. They are intense, and I whited out to the last 2 once, mainly because it's all my own fault. I made mistakes in regards to my dodging and everything, and it doesn't seem unfair. They don't seem unfair at all. It seems like you can easily conquer these bosses with your own knowledge and with your own gameplay. Now, one thing that I do want to talk about is traveling around the world, and this is the final thing I want to talk about. Traveling throughout the open world in regards to the, I guess, gameplay is pretty neat. Obviously, when you start off, you're only going to be able to run, and you're only going to be able to dodge, and you can't swim, you can't climb mountains, And so you're at a severe disadvantage in regards to your exploration, but it's really fun to travel the world now that I've beaten the game. It's really fun to utilize the ride Pokemon that you get, like Weirdeer, like Hisuian Bravery, like Basculegion. It's really fun to utilize these Pokemon to explore the world now and traverse it because it makes it feel so much cooler. And so I like that addition in regards to gameplay. And it's super simple to do. It's not very difficult to press the start button and get on your Weirdeer and start riding. And it feels really good. So that wraps up my main thoughts on Pokemon Legends Arceus so far. The full spoiler review is going to be a lot longer than this. I know that this is long now. This is almost 30 minutes. And I literally had so much fun playing this game. Overall, this game is very fun. I was very pleasantly surprised, and I think a lot of people were pleasantly surprised about this game because this is a huge step for Game Freak. This is not a self-contained Pokemon game. This is a semi-open world, rather, Pokemon game that undertook a lot of work, I can imagine. Obviously, there are some things that do need to be improved, and I would like to see improved if they decide to do another game similar to this. But overall, I thought this game was great, and I don't know. I just don't know what else to say. I'm going to have a super amount of fun playing this game as we continue to go through its life cycle. I'm going to take a couple days off it because I grinded almost 21 hours in the last couple of days on top of a work event, and I'm a little exhausted, but I enjoyed it for sure. If you guys like this video, definitely make sure to hit that like button down below. If you guys want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good day.